Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman, Pete Sepp. We got Eldon Stahl going to be with us soon. We got Kathleen Marquardt going to be with us as well. We've got so much news the networks refuse to use. It's not even funny. Trump launches new board of peace. Why Trump calls it a board. People will soon be prosecuted for rigged 2020 election, Donald says at Davos. Trump pulls back from threatening tariffs. He says he's got a deal on Greenland. The Heritage Foundation released an interesting policy statement we'll get into. Walking is the best exercise, they say. Anyway, we'll get into it all. Pete Sepp with us now. Pete Sepp is president of the National Taxpayers Union, NTU.org. NTU is the voice of America's taxpayers, mobilizing elected officials and everybody else to get in line. We want fair, appropriate, proper role of government taxation. Pete, welcome back, sir.
Always great to be here.
So there's so much going on. First, I want to talk about my honest money report, which I usually have on Thursdays as well. And in that report, we basically find out that, hey, gold is $4,600, $4,700, maybe $4,800. It fluctuates. Silver is literally like $94 an ounce. What does it mean, Pete?
Well, from my perspective, working for a taxpayer advocacy organization, that's a big no confidence vote in the federal government's finances. It means people are very concerned about the ability of politicians in Washington, D.C. to get this fiscal house in order, to do something about a $37 trillion national debt that now well exceeds our national annual economic output. These are very serious questions. And okay, granted, the price of gold is dependent on a number of factors, but I think that's a big one and an often overlooked one.
They have an opportunity to redeem themselves right now, though, as far as I understand. That appropriation bill, the second one, is on the table. If they don't get it together quickly, government will shut down again, from what I understand. But I also understand they're trying to put some things in place, and hopefully if we act responsible, if we fiscally do what we need to do, I think we might be able to redeem some of that, Pete.
Yeah, absolutely so. And this is a bipartisan project. We have to recognize that fiscal conservatism is the important principle here, not necessarily political conservatism or political party. In fact, there was recently introduced a bipartisan resolution in the House of Representatives, HRes 981. It was introduced by Bill Huizenga, Republican from Michigan, Scott Peters, a Democrat from California, saying that Congress needs to create a framework to reduce the federal deficit back down to 3% of our annual economic output. Currently, it's about 6%. So this is a reasonable goal to set that, hey, in 5 years, we want to work toward cutting the deficit in half as a share of our economy. I would love to see it go to zero by the end of this year. We probably could do it with determination, but here is a marker that anyone who is serious about getting our debt under control should be able to support. If you can't support this pathway, you're not serious.
So let me ask you this question, because I think this is really important. What could we cut from spending that wouldn't really impact the average American very much? In other words, a lot of times they use these scare tactics about, hey, Social Security is going away or this or that. And they talk about how much of the deficit or the debt, whatever you want to call it, the spending, the budget, whatever words you want to use, because, again, those aren't interchangeable, but they all relate. But what could we cut without even really have the American people feel a difference in their lives?
Well, when you take a look, for example, at a 26% improper payment rate in Obamacare subsidies, the so-called premium tax credits and other subsidies, well, that's money that should never be going out the door of the Treasury in the first place. When you take a look at improper payment rates in food stamps, again, This is a scam going on. This is not people who are claiming eligibility because they don't know the rules and it's not their fault necessarily and they really need them. They may not qualify under every single category, but they feel a need. This is just outright scamming. In other words, foreign entities who create fictitious identities and start getting food stamps. I mean, this is a real big problem now because.
And do we have a general dollar amount to this? If it's 25%, what dollars are we talking?
Well, as far as food stamps are concerned, the rate fluctuates every year somewhere between 10 and 20%. Now, given the billions that are laid out there, you're talking about potentially $7 to $10 billion of savings. And
that's a huge start, and that's just one line item, basically, right?
That's right. That's just in one federal program. You see improper payments throughout Medicare Part B. You see it in Medicaid, dramatic improper payments. You see states effectively creating a Ponzi scheme. They levy taxes on providers, and then they give refunds through the federal Medicaid program for all the taxes they pay so that states get to keep more money to which they're not entitled.
And the general government really shouldn't be giving any money to the states in a pure constitutional reality, right?
That's right. That's right. There's a respect factor here that I think needs to go both ways. If the federal government is to respect the limits of its power, the states need to step up and be able to do things on their own without federal aid. And that compact that it existed pretty much up until the mid-20th century is long gone, and it's costing taxpayers a lot of unnecessary funding.
All right. Are we seeing the government supposed to be shut down by the end of the month if they don't get this together, right?
It is quite possible it would be a partial shutdown, but yes, parts of the federal government.
And the reason it's partial because in the first go-round, some things they extended longer than this deadline, right?
That's right. That's right. Now, one of them they didn't extend, of course, was funding for the Internal Revenue Service under a shutdown situation.
So we could just shut down the IRS entirely and nobody would have to pay taxes?
Unfortunately, certain parts of the IRS certain parts of the IRS are on autopilot, and
I see.
People are also filing their tax returns.
So they don't shut down me having to file, but they might shut down my return. That's how they play, right?
That's right. And your tax refund, which is your money that you overpaid to the IRS, might get caught up in the system somewhere. And
well, if that's true and they took my money and then they're holding on to my money, then it would be illegal and I'd have to sue them for stealing, Pete.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't blame people for doing that. California got caught doing that in a budget deficit situation several years back. They delayed the issuance of tax refunds. And once that was exposed, the state government knew, wow, we're in a real pickle here because we could be legally compelled by a court to give that money back. It's not as if it's a benefit program where the government just doesn't have the money to pay. That is people's tax dollars that they overpaid.
Amen to that. All right, so Liz, I want you to skip the break, okay? Skip the break. Okay, Pete, what does this mean then? I mean, are they really going to just, again, kick the can down the road? Is that the plan, do you think?
I don't think so. I believe that the House of Representatives has done a lot of good work in filling in some holes that need to be filled in, working on passing all of the appropriations bills for the fiscal year that we're in. I think we're going to avoid a shutdown. My odds of a partial shutdown are probably 1 in 3 right now.
Wow, that's pretty good. Or 66% likely, if you will, that they're going to not shut down. Do you think they're going to really cost cut? I mean, we see this gold and silver going through the roof. We see the stock market kind of swinging down and everything else. People are kind of holding their bated breath, wondering what the heck is going to happen with tariffs and Greenland and Davos and all these, Europe now trying to throw tariffs on us, and I mean it's a pretty topsy turvy. But do you think that they're going to save some money? Because I think if they could really show some fiscal restraint, if they could really say, "Hey, we're going to change the game here. We're going to hold the line. It would go a long way, Pete. It really would."
Yeah, yeah. To give a number of examples here in the appropriations process, you're seeing efforts to hold or actually reduce funding for the IRS and reorient it toward taxpayer service. I mean, that's a fantastic bit of progress. There's more relief coming through the Reconciliation 2.0 bill. Very important.
All right, we're just going to keep talking through this break. It was supposed to be canceled.
Okay.
Go ahead, Pete. Continue, sir.
The real opportunity here is through what's called the budget reconciliation process. And reconciliation happens generally once, occasionally twice in a fiscal year, when Congress instructs committees to start reaching deficit reduction and spending and revenue targets. And through this process, you get what's called a privileged bill, something that is not immune, but very resistant to parliamentary tactics that can hold up the process. That's how the One Big Beautiful Bill Act got passed in 2025 through reconciliation. Well, now we have an opportunity for another bill in 2026. We got together a coalition of nearly 20 organizations on the pro-taxpayer side, calling on Congress to use this opportunity to really dig into spending reductions. That means addressing generous health care subsidies to healthy and able-bodied Americans, structurally reforming the government payment and benefit system, finally codifying changes that DOJ made. Believe it or not, a year has passed since that effort began, and a lot of DOJ's reports were never even enacted into legislation. So there's plenty of work to do, plenty. And I think
didn't Mike Johnson kind of intimate or virtually promise, hey, this next go round is the one where we're going to really dig in and get it done? The reason we didn't before is we just didn't have time, but now we do. And I mean, isn't that really kind of the message we were sent?
Yes, exactly. And Republicans, of course, who control Congress, have to be very careful here to balance the art of the possible with the necessity of what has to happen in order to keep investors happy, to make sure that we don't have a huge crash in U.S. Treasury bonds. That would be just a catastrophe. But there are nervous people out there, and I don't blame them. They are waiting to see progress in bringing our federal deficit down and beginning to introduce or reduce the national debt.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is serious, and I want to really kind of dig in here for a second. Are we really having the battle of everybody hates Donald? Donald's a lame duck president. The Republicans are betraying Donald and going along with the Democrats, and they're going to vote for bigger spending. Is that a real thing behind the scenes, or is that just political media hype?
A lot of it is political theater, but one thing isn't, and that is Republican concern over holding on to the Senate and the House of Representatives going into the election this fall. Now,
I think that's important, Pete, but I also am concerned they don't really have a lot to show for why we should elect them. Now, they could say the Democrats will be worse. Okay, but they don't really have a lot to point to, do they?
I think they ought to be able to trumpet One Big Beautiful Bill Act because a lot of progress was made not only in keeping taxes low, but further reducing taxes and finally beginning to reform the big driver of debt and deficits, which is entitlements. There's a good $1 trillion worth of savings in Medicaid and other federal entitlement programs in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. If they can hold the line on these Obamacare subsidies, which were never meant to be at this level for this long, it was just a COVID-era expansion. If they can hold the line and say, no, we're going to do something different, we're not just going to open the spending floodgates again, that will be something to show. But again, through this new reconciliation process, they got to do more.
Didn't 17 Republicans already go with the Democrats and vote for Obamacare to continue in the House, though?
Yeah, they signed what was called a discharge petition and then voted for a bill that got 230 votes for a
Why would they do that?
extension.
I thought they were all against Obamacare. They voted 40 plus times to get rid of it when they had no power to do so. Then when they had power the first time to do so, they never got it done. Now it's really gone, but yet they're voting it back.
Yeah,
this shows their true colors, right?
I think one problem was they didn't come up with a credible alternative to healthcare control.
How come they didn't call me, Pete? I've got a credible alternative. I could give it to them in about an hour.
That's right. There's plenty of solutions here. And in fact, we have signed on to a whole platform of healthcare reforms with a number of other organizations that was devised by Steve Moore and some excellent economic advisors. And it basically stresses transparency, accountability, and empowering people with their own money to shop for their own health care. That's a simple principle, and there are a lot of pieces of legislation, executive orders, whatnot, that can actually put these principles into practice. But Republicans just seemed skittish about moving.
Well, they're the ones in the after World War II days that tied health care to your employer in the first place, and that's got to be severed. My insurance has nothing to do with my employment. Nothing.
That's right. In the end, if employers want to provide that, fine. But individuals should be free to shop with their own dollars too, and they really aren't. Sure, self-employed folks can take a deduction for the premiums they pay, but that's not really the same as having a competitive insurance market like auto insurance, for example, for healthcare that empowers the individual rather than employers or hospitals or whomever.
Or life insurance or anything of the sort. Let the free market reign, baby. Eldon Stahl, welcome to the broadcast, sir. Do you have a comment or a question for Pete Sepp, sir?
Well, yeah, I was, of course, in agreement. Yeah, we should phase out these things. These are programs that really are part of the, socialist model, the Fabian socialist strategy of gradually getting us into Marxism. But how should we phase these out?
Well, I think there are a lot of ways. And I mean, the first thing Republicans need to do is level with the American people and say, is there anything that could be worse than the system we have now outside of complete Marxism and federal control of the entire healthcare system? They've already got a huge chunk of it. The federal government already controls more of our healthcare dollars than the private sector does. The only thing that would be worse is 100% control instead of about 65-70% control. We don't want to go there. We know how it fails. France has it. They're collapsing. UK has it. They're teetering on the brink of collapse. We can't go
Canada
there.
has it. They're not doing any better.
No. And so they really have to get the message that freedom and that we trust you with your money to decide how you want your health care to take place. That's the first basic message. And from there, we can start to wind back some of the subsidies. And then once the subsidies are winding back and people have that money, the markets develop, and sooner or later, you're able to wind back the federal programs more and more and more until we have a system that takes care of everybody the way they want to be taken care of.
The HSA accounts are part of the problem, too, because if you funnel all your money to that and give the money to the people directly, you're really not helping things. You're still maintaining government control. It becomes more fascist than socialist at that point. You own it, but they control it, kind of an idea. And to me, I don't want an HSA account. I don't want a 401k. I don't want you to put my life in these 82 buckets that you tend to just manipulate and play games with and change the parameters relating to throughout my life and everything else. Leave me alone. Let me have my money and let me work at the free market to make my own choices, Pete. We need to get to that in all aspects of our lives.
Yeah. And of course, we have deregulatory things to do, or I don't like even using that word. It sounds like it's something scary, and the absence of regulation is going to cause all kinds of problems. What it really is saying we're going to let markets work. And that means, for example, letting people purchase health insurance across state lines, like car insurance. It means allowing people to actually bypass insurance if they don't want it and negotiate with healthcare providers. I know of a number of people who do that, and they don't have the kind of fear of losing coverage because they know how much things cost and how much they need to save to pay for them. That works for some people. For others, they want insurance. Let freedom work for everybody, whether they want insurance or not.
Well, there's a lot of other options too. There's health share plans in the Christian world and some of the other health share things. There's all kinds of direct primary care kind of solutions, DPC. So there's a lot of options, folks. And the market will, if there's a demand, provide supply. It's that simple of a discussion. Eldon?
Yeah, I think Pete made a really good point, though, just saying that, really, if we're going to have meaningful change in policy, it starts with changing the basic fundamentals that people understand regarding the role of government, economics, some of these basic concepts, because that provides a foundation for any society and how they decide what their policy is going to be in government. And that's really where you got to start. You got to start with the education.
Amen, Pete.
Yeah, and there are so many folks who ask, well, how can we wind it back that far? Where would we start? What do we want the federal government to do? Well, that's when you take out a copy of your pocket constitution and say, hey, here are all the enumerated powers that our founders said the federal government could exercise. Our Constitution is mostly and often about limiting what the federal government can do rather than saying that the federal government has freedom. I mean, as if it's a person. No, it's an entity of people that are supposed to serve us and protect our rights. And
Amen. One of the things I love about Pete Sepp, we've been interviewing him for more than 25 years, ladies and gentlemen, is because he's the president of the National Taxpayers Union, NTU.org. And it's a union that you're not forced to be part of or anything like that. You just join. They help people from the top to the bottom. So, right, your local government's the top, DC is the bottom. But they help you at all levels. Manage taxes, provide tax reform. They can partner with you at all levels. But most importantly, what I love about Pete Sepp is he has the ability to be hard-hitting and tell the truth. He's a truth teller. But he also has the wisdom to not make it partisan, to not pander to one group or another. He holds the line with fundamental truths. And that is a rarity in D.C. or anywhere else, Pete.
Well, I appreciate the compliment, but there are plenty of us out there who want to see a different direction, plenty of us who just need the tools to make that change. Contact us. We can help you start a local taxpayer organization, and a lot of great things can happen at the city level, not just the federal level.
Well, next time we talk, we'll be able to see your prediction that they'll keep the government open, and I hope they can save money and keep the government open. That is their duty, sir.
That is indeed. Taxpayers forward.
Thank you, Pete Sepp. We appreciate you, buddy. NTU.org, ladies and gentlemen. Pete Sepp, the president of the National Taxpayers Union, doing a phenomenal job as always. Thanks again, sir. Eldon Stahl, Sam Bushman continue. Our next guest coming up, and she wrote a book, Animal Scam. We'll talk about it in seconds. You're watching the one and only Liberty Roundtable Live.
your daily Liberty News Wire. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. Before leaving Davos, Switzerland and the World Economic Forum, President Trump has held a discussion with Ukrainian President Zelensky. They talked about the potential for a peace agreement with Russia. Mr. Trump is withdrawing his threat to tariff 8 European nations for opposing his bid to assume control of Greenland. The president says he has agreed to the outline of an Arctic security deal.
One of the officials who attended the meeting has told the New York Times that Denmark could grant the U.S. sovereignty over small pockets of land where military bases could be built. The idea is said to be based on the sovereign British bases in Cyprus. The details have yet to be fully worked out and will involve further negotiation. A NATO spokesperson said discussions would focus on ensuring Arctic security through the collective efforts of allies.
The BBC's Sarah Smith. Powered by strong consumer spending, the U.S. economy grew at the fastest pace in 2 years, July through September. The Commerce Department says America's gross domestic product, that's the nation's output of goods and services, rose at a 4.4% annual pace in the third quarter. A Texas jury has acquitted a former Uvalde Schools police officer, Adrian Gonzalez. Among the first to respond to the deadly mass shooting at Robb Elementary School, he had been accused of failing to stop the gunman early on and faced 29 criminal charges. Defense attorney Jason Goss argued his client was far from the only officer on the scene.
Twisting it around, and they're saying, well, that his job, every shot was noticed, that Adrian had to go in and be the person to die at the door, to be the person that tried to breach, solo entry with nothing. But nobody else did that.
From Texas to Oklahoma and all the way up into the Northeast, powerful winter storm is forecast to spread snow, freezing rain, and ice, along with frigid temperatures across a vast area in the coming days. Wall Street, the Dow's up 237 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher. Now that we're finally into the new year, a lot of us are thinking about taxes, home projects we've been putting off, ways to get ahead financially in 2026. Now's the perfect time to talk to my friends at Fellowship Home Loans. If you want to lower your mortgage payment, they can help you refinance. If you need access to cash for home improvements or to wipe out high-interest debt, their fixed-rate line of credit is one of the best tools out there. Fast approval, predictable rate, and flexibility to use your home's equity wisely. Remember, many people still qualify to skip their next 2 mortgage payments. Imagine starting big projects or paying down debt with 2 months of breathing room. My family and I have used Fellowship personally. I trust these guys. Take control of 2026. Go to fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G. fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G. fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G. or call 800-510-MIKE. That's 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans. Mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers. DBA Fellowship Home Loans. Equal housing lender. NMLS number 819382.
Introducing Managed IT Services from NPI. We offer top-notch data backup and recovery, email spam protection, and network security tailored to your needs and budget. With 20-plus years of experience in the medical field, our HIPAA-certified consultants know what it takes to protect sensitive information. Don't settle for less. Give us a call at 801-706-6980 and experience the difference with Managed IT Services. Remember, your IT support should be fast, efficient, and reliable.
Introducing PrepStartsNow.com, your ultimate guide to readiness and peace of mind. We offer practical preparedness tools, training, and education to take your family's household readiness to the next level. Browse the prep shop for essential products, check out our planning guides, and stay informed with our prep blog. Visit PrepStartsNow.com and subscribe to our emails for exclusive offers, new products, and future events. Remember, preparedness begins with PrepStartsNow.com.
Cybercrime is exploding. Take Sarah from Sweet Delights, whose world crumbled after having to close with not being able to bounce back. Small businesses are prime targets, but the right strategies can keep yours safe. Jay Hill, CEO of Network Providers, has co-authored The Cyber Playbook Simplifies Cybersecurity for Business Owners with Strategies to avoid costly breaches and fines. Build a strong cyber attack response. Secure your business with key protections. Cyber threats aren't slowing down, but you can stay ahead. Protect your business. Ensure its security for tomorrow. Get the Cyber Playbook today at networkprovidersinc.com/cyber-playbook or call 385-446-5500 now.
Back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Sam Bushman. I've got Eldon Stahl with me. He's the field coordinator for the John Birch Society, jbs.org. They're also responsible for the incredible magazine that's been around as long as I've been alive, The New American. I'm telling you, thenewamerican.com. They do a phenomenal job. My dear friend Alex Newman has just been reporting on Davos, while Donald, ladies and gentlemen, is telling you that it's awesome. Everything is awesome, like the Lego movie. The people behind the scenes are kind of saying, "Hey, we're gonna take off the gloves now. We're going for global government, and Donald's in the way." And so we're going to see what's happening with that in another broadcast with Alex Newman here pretty soon. But I'm just telling you, the New American doing a phenomenal job. All right, we got Kathleen Marquardt with us, ladies and gentlemen, and she is the vice president with our dear friend Tom DeWeese over at AmericanPolicy.org, the American Policy Center. Kathleen, welcome to the show.
She is here.
Hi, Kathleen. All right, we'll have to get that worked out. In the meantime, though, Trump is, in my opinion, doing some very strange things. He launched a new global board of peace, which I'm uncomfortable with. We'll try to get to that later. He calls it a board, which I find interesting because that avoids anything to do, ladies and gentlemen, with the proper way we deal with these things, okay? You don't have to have a Senate vote if you do that, right? The question isn't peace. It's whether any president should be able to create this, I don't know what you call it, this board, this thing where he's the chair of it, international global leadership control, simply by changing the names and skipping the votes. See, it's not a treaty. It's not a formal agreement. It's none of those things. And so it's very, very concerning. Although described as non-binding, they say that it converts the structure. A formal diplomacy kind of an idea then becomes a long-term global commitment, expanding executive power without congressional oversight, without, what do you want to say, without leveling with the people. I mean, it really violates the checks and balances. And whatever happened to America first, it really flies in the face of that. So that's problematic. Trump did say so many things at Davos that it's hard to respond to what he said, folks. And he basically said, hey, we're going to work on all kinds of things. We're going to talk about, tariffs. We're going to talk about Greenland. We're going to talk about this and that. And then he went off on the elections. I mean, Donald literally went crazy at the Davos meeting. Trump says, quote, people will soon be prosecuted for the rigged 2020 election. Now, I wish he was right. I pray for this. But, folks, 2020 election was 6 years ago, and we ain't seen nothing. Trump's been around for over a year now, and we ain't seen nothing. So I pray that Trump's right, but I don't have a lot of confidence in it. Anyway, here's the best take video of what he said at Davos. Here it is.
We are thousands of miles away, separated by a giant ocean. It's a war that should have never started, and it wouldn't have started if the 2020 U.S. presidential election weren't rigged. It was a rigged election. Everybody now knows that. They found out. People will soon be prosecuted for what they did. It's probably breaking news, but it should be. It was a rigged election. Can't have rigged elections. You need strong borders, strong elections, and ideally good press. I always say it. Strong borders, strong elections, free, fair elections. Fair media. The media is terrible. It's very crooked. It's very biased, terrible. But someday it's straightened out because it's losing all credibility. Think of it. When I won in a landslide, a giant landslide, won all 7 swing states, won the popular vote, won everything, and they only get negative press. That means that it has no credibility. And if they're going to get credibility, they're going to have to be fair. So you need a fair press. But you also need those other elements. And I inherited a terrible, terrible situation. If you look, the border was open, the inflation was raging, everything was bad with the United States when they came into office. But I also inherited a mess with Ukraine and Russia, something that would never happened, and I know Putin very well. He and I would discuss Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye, but he wasn't going to do anything. I said, Vladimir, you're not doing it. He would never have done it. It was terrible what happened. I could see it happening, too. After I left, I could see it happening.
There you have it. You know, I really hope Trump makes sure people literally are prosecuted for the rigged 2020 elections. I really pray that that's the case. I don't know how any other way to explain it than that. I really think we need something to hold accountability, and we've never got it yet. So I pray we do. I'm sorry that I have to hear about it in a world globalist form of elite thugs that want to destroy America, but that's another topic. All I'm saying is I appreciate it, but at the same time, President Trump launched his new global board of peace. Whatever happened to America first is my question with that. Okay, Trump signed the, quote, Board of Peace Charter at the World Economic Forum in Davos, officially launching a new international body intended to oversee the peace process in Gaza and beyond. It's all about nation building. Netanyahu decided he wanted to put $1 billion in and join. The initiative, which Trump will chair for life, which invites world leaders to participate, is being framed as a permanent global peace institution, drawing criticism that it contradicts the rhetoric of America first and the campaign promises to cut back international bodies, even working alongside or potentially circumventing the United Nations. Some will say, well, this is better. This is the way to go. All I'm telling you is this is a big concern to anybody who's honest with themselves. Because, I mean, will we have another president in America dealing with the internal affairs, but yet Trump still maintains this chair for life thing? So do we have a president of the United States and then kind of a leader of this international group that's Donald? Well, he's like 85 or what? The World Economic Forum already melted down in failure when Klaus Schwab got caught in all kinds of scandals. So just remember that. All right, Kathleen, do we have you back?
I think she's muted.
All right, we'll try to get Kathleen here. We just got to move on here, folks. The bottom line is, Eldon, what do you think of this? I'm saying this thing of Donald Trump and Davos, and I mean, a lot of things he says are great, but then he has these things in there that just make me go, wait a minute, what about the checks and balances? Wait a minute, what about the Constitution? Wait a minute, what about international law? And he tends to walk these tightropes all the time where it's like, well, maybe he's got this awesome plan. Maybe we just got to give him a chance to let it unfold, is what everybody tells me. But at the same time, I go, no, constitutional principles are real. Eldon?
Yeah, well, this does raise quite a few questions, and this is a very new development, so it's been difficult to really analyze, what's what so far as this Board of Peace of Gaza. But yeah, overall, our history with international organizations has not been really constitutionally friendly, has it? It's been
I should say not.
Put an understatement. Essentially, these international organizations have been a tool of the Socialist International to get all kinds of countries together in the name of peace or whatever noble sounding pretext, and to get them to implement things that go along with international socialism or domestic socialism, whatever it might be. All of this, you look at, of course, the United Nations. That would be a prime tool, NATO as well, of getting countries working together and just making sure that sovereignty of that nationhood is undermined, that internationalism, globalism is exalted into some sort of brotherhood of man, as the French Revolution people put it. All of this stuff has been pointing us, guiding us gradually toward a one world government under socialism and toward a one world religion, really.
And now we're told by Alex Newman, our dear friend who I trust completely, and others today, Donald Trump's putting a fly in the ointment of this global governance agenda that they have. He's blowing it up. He's getting rid of all kinds of international organizations and strings and everything else. And on one hand, that's true. On the other hand, if he creates this other thing that he's the leader of, you might say, well, as long as Trump's in charge, it's going to be okay. But at some point, if this organization is to stay, Donald will be replaced by another Klaus Schwab, another leader of BlackRock, another. Yeah, so on one hand, we think we're trimming this down, and that's good. But at the same time, are we not creating something much worse? And it reminds me of this, hey, we're going to get rid of NAFTA and GATT, and we're going to go ahead and have this, new thing by Donald, which was way worse than what we had before. Are we into that territory, you think, Eldon?
Possibly. It's it's just really hard to see where this is going. It could be possibly lead to something of a genuine area where we negotiate, meet with people from other countries and representatives from other governments and things. And that's not a bad thing. As founders of our country, we're always very willing to talk with people from other countries. But, if it leads us to something where we have so-called international law and some stuff that's going to be binding, as different treaties have been with the United Nations, and somehow claiming authority over our U.S. Constitution or the constitutions of other countries, well, that would be more toward a world government type of thing, wouldn't it?
That is the problem. So, I don't mean to just criticize Trump. I know it seems like, hey, Sam's kind of turning into a Trump basher. I don't mean to be. Okay, because I really think what Donald Trump has done in so many ways is really valuable. His efforts at the border are tremendous, although they need to escalate big time. I know we think that he's cranking it out, but we've got to get rid of 1 million people a month if we're really going to get a handle on this kind of thing from the past. We really got to do something serious, okay, because there's just too many illegals in this country and too many criminals. So we got to step that up. But I appreciate Donald on the border. I appreciate Donald being the most pro-life president in our lifetime or more. I mean, he's really done a pretty good job on pro-life stuff to the best of his ability. I agree that a lot of his rhetoric is problematic. But you know what? Now he basically says, hey, we're not going to take on Greenland by, having tariffs on everybody. Trump pulls back from threatening tariffs over Greenland. He says we've got a NATO framework deal that I can go with. President Trump said that he will not impose these tariffs. He also says, hey, I've ruled out using military force in this dispute relating to Greenland. So, it's good that he backs away from those statements. I wish he wouldn't make them in the first place. But I will say that I commend him for that. And I think he's really trying to be the peace president. I think he hopes that he can create peace, but I'm telling you, international foreign entanglements take down the best of intentions, take down presidents oftentimes in their second term. Our dear friend Dr. Scott Bradley highlights this. Every president's second term steps in it internationally, Eldon. Okay. So there we have that, ladies and gentlemen. So there's so much to cover, so little time. People are going to be prosecuted. I pray the answer is yes. But I don't have a lot of confidence people will be prosecuted. Okay? I wish we really would, but I just don't have confidence. All right, by the way, the Heritage Foundation came out with an interesting report, and it's called a policy paper. It's titled Saving America by Saving the Family. It's incredible. Advocating policies to boost family formation by emphasizing traditional marriage as the societal cornerstone. Did you get that? Let me just summarize it. The Heritage Foundation released a report, and they're saying, hey, we got to bring back God-ordained marriage as the cornerstone of the family. Jessica Rose, a New York Times opinion writer, of course, criticized the paper, highlighting its use about outdated references and questioning its historical accuracy about the founding fathers. Then she goes into this goofball stuff. She describes the foundation's paper as retrograde and unable to adapt to societal changes over the last 60 years. And then she basically goes into Sally Heming and this and that and says the founders aren't what you think they are. And she basically trashes America. But ladies and gentlemen, the Heritage Foundation cited the marital and parental statistics of the Declaration of Independence insiders. Okay, and that's why she contests it, talking about Sally Hemings and all this kind of stuff. But what they were talking about is they were talking about, hey, in the Founding Father-esque days, marriage was a centerpiece. Everybody understood that a man was a man, a woman was a woman, and God ordained man and woman to be together in the sacred union of marriage. And their point is we need to return to that. And all the New York Times editor did was trash it. But I'm going to double down in defense of their point. Study after study after study shows that when you have a God-ordained traditional family with a male and a female together with fidelity to one another, and they're loyal to one another and to their children, and they carry out their general fundamental responsibilities of for the mother nurturing and the father protecting, of the father, providing, and the mother, and that doesn't mean that those gender-specific responsibilities are 100%. It has adaptation to people's lives, right? Like I'm a blind person, so my wife does all the driving in our family. There's adaptation. But at the end of the day, this Heritage Foundation release, this policy paper entitled Saving America by Saving the Family, and they're advocating for God-ordained traditional marriage to be the cornerstone, the societal cornerstone. Well, family is the fundamental unit of society. And so with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, it's pretty clear. And the New York Times editors, instead of spending a little bit of time to follow the studies, the safest place, according to all kinds of psychology, psychiatry, studies about social science and connectivity, all these different things, all of them point to the God-ordained family is the safest place for a man to be, the safest place for a woman to be, or I should say a father and a mother, and the safest place for children to be. Study after study after study bears that out as truth. And so, it's sad that these people are pushing back on this so hard because it's dangerous, in my opinion. It's very dangerous to not acknowledge the truth. But again, what do you expect from the New York Times? As Donald Trump told you, that media is terrible. But what I find interesting is Donald Trump and all the administration and all the different people who are representatives, none of them come on our shows. None of them have opened up the door to discuss things with us. They all talk to the enemy press, if you will. They talk to CNN, and they talk to The View, and they talk to Who's Your Daddy, and they talk to all these different places. They go on all these, even Fox. They go on Fox as if Fox is their friends. It's called Fox and Friends. Okay, they said, we report, you decide. That turned out to be a big old lie. As long as you talk about what we want to talk about, and as long as you say what we want you to say, then we report, you decide. Otherwise, we'll just simply cut your mic off in the middle of your sentence if you're not very careful. I mean, you've got Marco Rubio fact-checking some of these clowns on air in real time, and they're speechless when it happens. But why are we spending time on that, mainstream press that's so terrible? Why don't we spend time building the honest press, the accountable press, those who tell the truth? Why doesn't Donald Trump come on? And when I say it's a concern, Donald, that you're creating this, quote, peace board, when, it skips all of Congress. And, how's this? I'd love to discuss this, because I don't mean to be against Trump on it. And if I had a detailed explanation, I might be able to understand a lot more of his intentions and et cetera. But see, without that, I got to speak in a vacuum because I don't have them to tell their story. And I certainly don't trust the mainstream press to get all the details from the mainstream press. They're the problem, Donald says. So who do I go to? If I can't go to Donald, and I can't go to the press, I've just got to see the headlines and interpret them the best I can, right? Eldon, are you back with us?
Yeah.
What do you think of this incredible? What do you think of this incredible report where the Heritage Foundation is literally saying we got to bring back God-ordained marriage or traditional marriage as the cornerstone of the family? I mean, incredible report being attacked by the New York Times right now.
Well, this isn't a surprise that it's being attacked, and I've been able to kind of skim the report. But basically, the takeaways is it's a pushing back against humanism. The idea of, if you look at the Humanist Manifesto 1 or 2, you'll see that These are ideas that have been slowly put into our society in America very carefully but consistently, especially through our education systems, but also through the mass media and other places, essentially eroding little by little the importance of family, the importance of marriage, of children, these things that are just by nature the bedrock of any society. And the point of it, for a lot of them, the humanists dovetail very well with the socialists, of course, is to elevate government to be the ultimate authority over everything and anything, and also to disrupt society, so that people have to look toward government for that. I would certainly recommend getting a copy at, I'll make a plug for jbs.org or shopjbs.org. Our new book brought back into circulation is actually an old book called The Siecus Circle, SIECUS Circle. The under subtitle is The Humanist Revolution. Goes through all of this stuff.
And it really highlights how they've taken us down the road of humanist socialism and destroying godly principles. And great book, shopjbs.org, right?
Yeah, called The Siecus Circle, SIECUS Circle.
The Siecus Circle. All right,
Yep.
There you have it. Watch for that, ladies and gentlemen. Keep an eye on that. I want to bring in Kathleen again. And Kathleen Marquardt, she's the VP of the American Policy Center. Dear friends of ours, I want to just let you, Catherine, welcome you and give a little teaser to your book. And then what I want to do is reschedule you where we can get everything squared away. We had a little bit of glitches, but we want to give you time. So give us a little teaser about your book, and then we'll have you back.
Well, my book is about the whole fight against animal rights, and it's going to be rewritten, but it really doesn't need. It just needs minor things to be updated because a few things have changed, maybe a little bit, but the basic line is simple. We hate animals. We hate people. We love animals. And animal scam is what it is all about. It's about how they're using the fight for rights for animals to attack humanity, like they're doing in every other aspect of our lives. And like you were discussing, what they're really doing is trying to stop people from having other people.
Yeah, and what they really want to do is elevate animals to be almost more important than people. I mean, you see it in society. Dogs are allowed everywhere. I'm literally in the hotel and dogs are barking, and I'm at restaurants and dogs are running through. I mean, we've literally let the whole nation go to the dogs over this psychotic idea that somehow animals are just as important and or as more important than people. And that's really the scam, right?
Right. It's the more important that's really true. In Germany, a number of years ago, they had a court case where they had a lawyer representing the animal, and the animal was the challenger, and the animal won that animals do not have to be killed for their fur. It's just, totally bizarre how they're using something that is impossible because the animals have no reasoning.
All right, there you have it, Catherine. Thank you so much. Tell everybody where they can get your book, and then we'll have you back. We'll schedule time and have you on.
You can get my book on Amazon.com and also through American Policy Center.
All right, give us the name of the book.
Animal Scam, The Beastly Abuse of Human Rights.
And it's available on Amazon and all fine bookstores near you, ladies and gentlemen. Also, check out AmericanPolicy.org. Thank you so much, ma'am. We'll have you back for a real segment. We appreciate your understanding. I'm Sam Bushman, ladies and gentlemen. Eldon Stahl with me, JBS.org. Hang tight. Save our republic.